Well, Matty, as you know, my chief interest in the famine centres on my own county, County Kerry, and in particular North Kerry, and especially the Greater Listowel area. And as we learned from the recent excellent publication from University College Cork, something between a fifth and a quarter of the population of Kerry disappeared during the famine years, either through death or immigration. But the whole issue of the famine in Kerry is rather complex. For example, in some parts of Kerry, say the poor mountainy area between Killarney and Waterville, the effect of the famine was not so grave. Whereas in other parts, for example, Dingle, where you had access to fish and you had good land, it had a very grave effect. And then in the area around Listowel, there were hundreds of people who were swept away during the famine. Literally hundreds of people were cut down in the workhouse in Listowel and were buried in the grounds of the workhouse and also in the famine graveyard, now known as Tompling Bawn, across the Ballybunion Road. Apparently, they were swept away by cholera and fever. Now, with regard to the whole question of soup kitchens and famine pots, there's no evidence for anything like soup kitchens or famine pots in North Kerry, for the simple reason that the centre of the relief for the dying and the distress during the famine was centred in the Presentation Convent in Listowel. In 1843, the parish priest of Listowel, Father Darby Mahoney, invited some nuns from Milltown in County Kerry, where they had a convent, to send some sisters up and establish a convent and school in Listowel, which they did in 1843. And no sooner had they established their convent and their school than the awful years of 44 and 45 struck. And then from donations from their benefactors, the sisters proceeded to help the distressed. From the first week they opened their schools, they had 500 or 600 young girls deprived in the convent, and thereafter that rose to about 800. And during 44 and 45, they fed all of them, the children and the parents and other adults who showed up, with a cup of boiled rice, half slice of bread, and a drink of milk. And they were able to do that throughout 44 and 45. But then by the beginning of 1846, all the resources were gone. And even during that year, half the sisters, even young sisters, died from overwork and malnourishment. But then came 1848, and the government made rye bread available. And the sisters then proceeded to distribute that to all and sundry who came for help. So if you're asking about soup kitchens and famine pots, I suppose you could say they were located in the Presentation Convent in Listowel. And happily, the Presentation Convent schools at primary and secondary level continue to flourish today. And unhappily, the convent no longer exists. It was closed down 20 years ago. But as I say, all that detail about the famine is contained in a diary which is kept by the sisters at that time and which survives to the present day. But the memory of the Presentation sisters hasn't been forgotten by the people of Listowel. They have remembered the 150 years of service they gave to providing education in the area, and also their heroic service during the bad famine years. And today in the square in Listowel, there's a very fitting monument, a memorial to the Presentation sisters, indicating that the people of Listowel have not forgotten their immense service to the area. And before I conclude, let me add that the chief promoter of the project to erect that monument, that very fitting monument to the sisters, was the public representative, Deputy Jimmy Deanan.